You know, some horror stories are all about the jump scare, but the ones that really stick with you, they're built on these big, unsettling ideas. They don't just scare you, they make you question everything. Today, we're unpacking a concept that does exactly that, blending cosmic gods with some serious philosophical dread. So let's talk about Dark Hollow. This is a comic book concept that's trying to do something, well, pretty wild. It's smashing together two totally different worlds, the epic, almost operatic scale of DC's New Gods, and this suffocating philosophical dread you'd find in a ghost story. It's a crazy mix, and it promises a whole new kind of horror. And that crazy mix really boils down to this one fascinating question at the very heart of the series. What happens when you trap a god, a being from cosmic battlefields, in a small, haunted town? All right, so the official logline kind of gives us the whole setup. Our main character, that's Grail, the daughter of the cosmic tyrant Darkseid. But here's the thing. All her immense power, it's pretty much useless here. She's not fighting some big army, she's fighting an idea, an existential horror. And to win, she has to master this amoral force just to break a cycle of suffering. So right away, you see the stakes here aren't just physical, they're totally philosophical. So how in the world does a story like this actually create horror? I mean, it's not about cheap jump scares, right? This comic uses a really carefully engineered system, almost like a blueprint for turning philosophy into pure fear. So let's break that down. Okay, so the series builds its special brand of horror on what you could call a three-part architectural blueprint. It all starts with scale, taking something cosmic and shrinking it way down to the personal. Then it redefines the whole concept of horror, shifting from monsters to terrifying ideas. And finally, it uses manifestation to make those abstract ideas feel frighteningly real. Let's take a look at each of these pillars. First up, scale. On the left, you've got where Grail comes from. We're talking epic, cosmic battles. But on the right, that's where she ends up, a dark, totally claustrophobic forest. This massive shift in scale just shrinks her entire world. It forces her godlike power to be seen through this really intimate lens of personal terror and, eventual psychological breakdown. So, that brings us to the second pillar, concept. And this is where it gets really interesting. The terror here isn't some monster you can punch. Like the slide says, it's the soul-crushing realization of cosmic indifference. I mean, just think about that for a second. The real horror is the idea that the universe just doesn't care about you. It doesn't care if you live or die. And any meaning you think you have, you've got to claw it out of that absolute nothingness all by yourself. Now that is a much, much deeper kind of fear. And all of that leads us right to the third and maybe most crucial pillar, manifestation. This is where the story takes these gigantic philosophical concepts and literally turns them into the monsters. It's the moment where theory becomes terror. So let's dive in and see how this philosophical engine actually powers the whole series. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does this philosophical engine actually work? I mean, how do you turn an abstract idea into a monster you can actually see and fear? So this slide basically lays out the entire system for us. You've got three core ideas from the philosopher Nietzsche, and they're each turned into these very real, tangible threats. First, the will to power, that basic drive to just expand your own influence. That becomes a horrifying procedure called the spirit lobotomy. Next, eternal recurrence, the idea of living the same life over and over again. That becomes the town's creepy cyclical ghost story. And finally, nihilism, the belief that life is ultimately meaningless. Well, that manifests as the final boss. So let's break down that first one, the spirit lobotomy. This isn't about killing someone's body. It's about completely erasing their soul. It literally strips away your morality, your identity, every single thing that makes you, you. And it leaves behind this hollow shell that's only driven by primal instinct. It's a terrifyingly literal take on the will to power, and honestly, a fate way worse than just dying. And then you've got the core ghost story, which is built on this idea of eternal recurrence. In this world, the ultimate terror isn't that you're going to die. It's that you're going to be trapped in an endless, agonizing beginning. The victims here are caught in this unbreakable loop, forced to relive their own suffering forever. And breaking that cycle, that's Grail's #1 mission. Okay, so when you're dealing with a horror this complex, this philosophical, you can't just throw a conventional hero at it. So let's take a look at how this absolute nightmare of a town forges Grail into something completely new. Grail's journey is not your typical hero's arc. Not at all. It's a four-stage ascension. She literally has to evolve beyond our traditional ideas of good and evil to become what the philosopher Nietzsche called the Übermensch. Now, that's a German word that basically means overman or superman. It's a being who doesn't just follow morality, they create it. So this isn't some fall from grace for her, it's a terrifying climb into a whole new kind of power. So her whole journey kicks off with absolute total failure. Grail shows up with this noble, inherited Amazonian code of ethics, but it turns out to be catastrophically useless against the kind of horror in this town. And that failure forces her to abandon everything she believes in and embrace the one thing that might actually work, the dark, amoral legacy of her father, Darkseid. So in the final stages, she's not just fighting the town's amoral forces anymore, she's learning to master them. She emerges as this self-defined being, an Übermensch with a brand new moral code that she literally forged in the fires of existential horror. She becomes the only one who can actually confront the abyss because she's stared right into that meaninglessness and created her own meaning in its place. And this is her final test, brilliantly shown right here. She can't just punch the wyvern tiger. See, this creature is the ultimate embodiment of nihilism. It's basically a living, breathing argument for meaninglessness. Its power is to just negate existence itself. So to defeat it, Grail has to assert her own self-created meaning as a force that's even more powerful than absolute nothingness. And that leaves us, and you, with this really unsettling question that's at the very heart of the entire series. When you move beyond good and evil, when you forge your own values completely from scratch, is that an act of ultimate heroism, or is it something truly, deeply terrifying? Ultimately, Dark Hollow isn't just another story concept. It's a mission statement. It's not trying to fit in with what's popular right now. Nope. It's designed to be a benchmark for a whole new kind of mature, philosophical horror, one that challenges the reader just as much as it challenges the hero, a story that really aims to define what's next.